This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Arguably one of the most exciting things about film photography is trying out the different formats and sizes of film that are available. Whether you've shot with a bunch of medium format cameras or you're still shooting exclusively 35mm, the Mamiya 645 is a camera that I end up recommending to most people who are looking to try and make the step up to medium format. Today I'm going to talk through why I think this is such an interesting camera, talk through some of the technicalities of it, go out, make some photos with it, and also share some of my old work with it because I used to own this camera just over 2 years ago now when I made the step up from 35mm to medium format. The first thing I think needs to be discussed with this camera is the format that it shoots. So obviously this camera shoots 120 medium format film, but on that film itself you can have a variety of formats, and this camera happens to be a 6x4.5 format. This is one of the smallest negatives that you can get on medium format, but if you're moving up from 35mm, you're really going to notice the difference between the formats, and this is going to give you a lot more resolution. That being said, because it's 6.4.5, you get 15 shots per roll. This means that for somebody who's starting out on medium format, you're going to get the most possible frames on a roll of 120, which means that it's going to be more economical than something like 6x7 or 6x6. And it just means that it's a little bit more forgiving if you mess up a couple frames per roll. One important thing to note is that there's a couple variations of this camera itself. If you are buying one today, I recommend that you get the Super because it has a little bit nicer design and some extra features that just make it really nice to use. The differences between this model and the older model are things like interchangeable film backs, a nicer plastic body that has a little bit of a sleeker design. That being said, comparing this camera to my RZ67, it's so much lighter. This thing will be way more portable. I don't know the exact weight differences, but just the form factor alone makes it so much more portable. It has really nice features like a mirror lockup, which my RZ67 doesn't have. It has a removable dark slide, interchangeable film backs, and a ton more things that you can have fun with. I've spoken about this with the RZ67, and this is definitely a similarity in the two cameras' designs, but the modularity of this thing makes it so customizable to whatever your needs might be. Literally every component of this camera down to the focusing screen is removable, and you can interchange it with different parts that make it suitable to your style of shooting photos. You can do things like switch midway through a roll of film, or if you're one of those people that likes to shoot black and white alongside color, then this will allow you to do that. This is the eye level viewfinder. What's nice about this is that it has built-in auto exposures, so you don't need to carry an additional light meter like you see me doing with my RZ67. It's all built in. There's nothing extra that you need to carry. It has a mirror lockup, which is super good for doing long exposures and nighttime photography because the camera shake is going to be reduced when you take a photo because the mirror is already flipped up. Aside from that, the camera is just super intuitive to use, and I'm pretty sure that you could give this to anybody who shot with a film camera before and they'd be pretty comfortable using it. There's not a massive learning curve to this thing by any means. It's quite a loud camera. You can have a listen to the shutter, but I do think it sounds pretty nice. As much as I could talk technically about this camera all day, there's a photo I've been wanting to make here in Manhattan, so that's what I'm gonna go do now. Gonna try and take some nighttime photos with the Mamiya 645. I wanted to come out and take some shots for this review, and there's a photo up there that I walked by during the daytime, but I've been meaning to come back to and take during the nighttime because I think the reflections and things will be cool. There's a couple cool features on this camera that make it really nice for nighttime photography, and I'll talk about those in a second. The thing that I didn't realize is that this camera needs a cable release adapter if you want to use a cable release. So I'm going to use 4 seconds, which is the longest shutter speed that this camera has, and hopefully that works fine. This isn't the shot I was talking about, but it should be a good warm-up shot. This is that photo that I was talking about making. I walked by here during the daytime and I knew that I had to come back here and photograph it at night because of the reflection in the window, and I just like the colors that come off of this building. I'm gonna take this 2 stops underexposed as well, just to see if maybe a slightly grainier version looks better. Also, I'm waiting for no cars to pass through the shot so that I don't get any light trails reflecting in the window of the building, which is now. This is the kind of scene that's worth bracketing, just because I came here specifically for this photo, so might as well do it right. Oh, this is perfect. I have the mirror lockup, the blackout in the viewfinder, and the meter internal. These exposures are like 4 seconds at f8 because it is decently bright out here with all the street lights and things. Let's see if this works. I'm super stoked on how this photo came out. This is a photo I've been meaning to make for a while and I just haven't gotten around to it. The last thing I want to do is talk about some work that I've made with this camera over 2 years ago when I first bought it. I dug up the archives to find some of these photos and footage. This was some of my first ever photo work, so go easy on the critiques with these photos. The first shoot I want to talk about was actually my first ever magazine publication. It was with Jersey Jinx, who's an incredible journalist here in New York. You might know him from Complex News, but this was a shoot we did for a magazine called Push. And this was actually the shoot that started my YouTube channel. I knew I was going out to shoot this publication and I asked my roommate to come along and film some behind the scenes. But in terms of the Mamiya 645, I think these portraits were really cool. It was an awesome location to shoot with this camera. It was a little diner in Tribeca, actually not too far from my office here. And I was shooting on Kodak Portra. You can see the photos have a ton of detail and the f2.8 on this lens is really nice. What I like about this camera is that you can shoot at 1/1000th of a second, whereas my RZ only does 1/400th, which means that you can use lower apertures like f2.8 even in really bright daylight. I really think that nice depth of field that you get from medium format was nice for these photos, and it was super cool just sitting in a diner with Jinx and shooting some photos. The blue colors were also really nice, and I love the way that they rendered on portraits. This really nice creamy blue, not sure how to describe it, but I was using the built-in meter on the Mamiya 645 here, and as you can see, the exposures are perfect. They're slightly overexposed, which I like, but it was really nice to be able to run and gun with that meter built into the viewfinder and not necessarily have to take out the external meter every time we changed up the pose or the scene. We also stepped outside the restaurant and walked around Soho a little bit for some more photos. That was really fun. The other set I want to talk about with the Mamiya 645 that I made ages ago was a trip I took to Japan. I went back there to visit a friend, and throughout the 5 days or so that I was in Japan, I just walked around with the Mamiya 645. This is what I'm talking about. It's a super portable camera, and it's not at all a burden to carry around like my RZ67 is. I would be totally comfortable having this on a strap and just walking around with this thing all day. I took some street portraits in Japan and also just photographed some of the architecture. I actually really like this photo of the barber shop because there's a man in the window sweeping the floor, and I think that just adds a nice little subtle accent to the photo. I think I shot a mixture of Kodak Ektar and Portra, and I also took some really nice portraits of my friends in Japan. These photos were made ages ago, but I still think they hold up really nicely. Again, I think there's 2 reasons why you might buy this thing. If you're moving up from 35mm and you're looking for an easy way to get into medium format, this is the best camera to do it with. It's super intuitive and it makes shooting medium format less intimidating. And the second reason you might buy this is if you're shooting a ton of medium format and you just want something a little more compact, the size of this camera is a huge plus, and getting 15 frames on a roll is also nice when you're used to shooting 6x7. Big thank you to Willie for letting me borrow this camera, and I also want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes taught by experts in their field that you can use to learn new skills and live your best life. There's an incredible range of photography courses on Skillshare, and I've personally been enjoying a class taught by one of my favorite photographers, Andre Wagner. He talks about his street photography in New York, darkroom printing, his work, and more. I personally love learning from artists, and Andre Wagner is a great example. You can take his class on Skillshare along with thousands of other classes taught by artists just like him. You can use my link in the description to get 2 months of Skillshare for free, so why not give it a try? Big thank you to them for sponsoring this video. That's it for this video. Tune in soon for a photo talks with Joe Greer and some more episodes where I just go out and make some cool pictures, because that is what I love doing on this channel. You can check out my Instagram, which is @WillemVerb. That's it for now. Peace.